What's going on? This is A.R. Shaw, RTM Newsroom Live, here with Dr. Adrienne Jones, Morehouse professor, political analyst, and we also have Adell Henderson, Real Times Media. We want to talk about the Georgia debate, gubernatorial debate between Stacey Abrams and Governor Brian Kemp. The first
Okay,
debate
you have to mention
of
the
the season.
libertarian candidate,
We have to mention a little bit Shane Hazel. Shane
Shane
Hazel.
Shane,
Hazel.
Shane, we have to mention him because he was a part of the debate. So I'm gonna start off by Dr. Jones. We'll let you start this thing off. Just what were your initial thoughts on the overall debate? How did all candidates do? And just what were your initial reactions watching the debate?
So it was super lively. I had a conflict, so I was basically in my class with the headphones on. Like, I don't care. I need to hear. The people tried to clown, and I was like, "Listen, this is my job. I'm trying to hear the debate." I thought it was extremely lively. I was saying earlier that I had not thought about the libertarian candidate, and like voting is my area in political science. Okay, so that's just negligent on my part, but I think that it is also reflective of how myopic we are about these elections, right? We need to think broadly. We need to be paying attention to who's running. We need to learn about libertarianism because maybe it appeals to us. Um, the voting mechanism is the way that we're getting representatives who try to put our policy needs ahead of us or put them in place. Um, I have to be. I thought all of the candidates were strong in terms of their speech. Um, I thought Stacey offers an alternative to what we've had over the last year with Brian Kemp, and that she outlined some policy proposals that might impact Georgians who right now don't necessarily feel like the governor's policy impacts them effectively. I think it's important that people understand that Stacey Abrams' platform is on her website because she hasn't been the incumbent for the last 4 years. So yes, you do have to go and look at her platform and see what her policy proposals include. Um, I was saying that I was complaining that a lot of discussion in the media has to do with the potential for Stacey to fail. And I have a problem with that because, Black women candidates, there have been zero for governor. She's the first one who is nominated by a party. I'm sorry about the noise. Um, we're in Georgia, for example, where the entire history of the state has involved the discrimination against Black voters. So, in fact, that means the attempt not to have Black leadership in the state. And I don't think that they have even thought about a Black girl governor. And we need to think about it, everyone. And so I think it's important that Stacey Abrams be covered like the other candidates. I feel like if she was a white man who lost to Brian Kemp, the incumbent, by less than 1% in a runoff in 2018, that we would be speaking more optimistically about her chances and or his chances, the same candidate as she is, who was a white man. Um, and I don't think people give Kemp, for example, enough pushback. Like, why is he in a competitive race with a Black woman in the state of Georgia? And
Right.
two,
Dr. Jones, I have to ask you. It was interesting that they didn't really the moderators. No one asked about abortion. What were your thoughts on that?
I missed that. Again, I was listening to
Mm,
sort of actively. Um, I'm surprised that they didn't talk about abortion.
yeah,
Stacey did mention
she brought it up.
Abrams. She did bring it up several times.
Right.
I think that Kemp brought it up several times, albeit more subtly, in terms of saying that, there are additional benefits for birthing mothers he talked about, and some other, but he said, and some stuff. Like, what does that mean? Um, so, I mean, I think the issue's on the table. I don't think that the GOP wants that to be an incredibly loud issue, right? That's
Right.
really fueled some of the Democratic wind. and it's a midterm election. And if you don't know, generally in midterm elections, it's like a referendum on the current presidency. So where Biden's approvals are low, the expectation is that in Congress, the Democrats should lose, some in the House, potentially some in the Senate. And we understand, too, that this balance of power in the Senate in particular will probably take some losses in the House, is contingent on Georgia again, right? At least in part. So if you ever had an opportunity to turn out that you thought might be worth it, this is probably worth it.
Yeah, well, I will say that, I mean, by far, this debate was so much more livelier than the debate we had last week with, Senator
Oh,
Warnock and
I want
Herschel
to say
Walker.
some things about that. Number
Right.
one is that we all need to recognize that that was a Fox News debate, right? And so Herschel Walker would accept a Fox News debate, especially because it's a
Mm,
friendlier environment for him. So, for example,
okay.
I had mentioned the other day that like Herschel Walker gave these like frontal looks at the camera, like he got this good camera coverage. But
Right, right, right,
they never
right.
rang the bell on Herschel Walker. They rang that bell on Warnock like three, 4 times,
Mm,
right? I'm saying so. You gotta to understand when you're watching these presentations, like who is the sponsor of the presentation? They asked Warnock about the situation with his wife in the driveway. They didn't ask Walker anything about all of the
very
religious
true.
abortion, again, same issue, information that came out like a week ago. They don't want to touch that. So, I mean, this is the Atlanta Press Club. They generally do debates, so it's more bipartisan, but it's still the media. It's still the United States. It's still Georgia.
Right, but I
It,
think, but my thoughts are between those two candidates. Obviously, Senator Warnock, so much more qualified, so much more experienced. But even in this debate, Shane Hazel had more, enthusiasm and energy than, Senator Warnock. That was one of the things that I found just challenging to
interesting.
process, after the fact. But this go round, there's a couple things that kind of stood out. At one point earlier in the debate, um, Governor, Kemp, mentioned that. Oh yeah, Miss Abrams, I know you're angry and you're angry. We know those are. It's just like, all
Yeah.
right, what are you saying? Subliminally. And then he also kept referring to, she's attacking me because she don't want to talk about her record. But
And what's her record?
point,
She
at
hasn't
no
been
point,
governor.
that's the thing. At no point was he like, but he
What are we
kept
talking
saying
about?
that. He kept
Show me
saying
the
that, but he
fact.
wasn't identifying, okay, this is something that you did that was wrong, or this is something that you did that got criticized about. And it was just like, but he kept bringing that up, so I don't know. The angry thing definitely, was a dog whistle. But I will say, um, I love the energy. Just factually, um, it was a lot more it just felt like a lot more informative. And I would love for you, Dr. Jones. One of the things that Stacey Abrams kept referring to was that $3.5 billion that Governor Kemp, is refusing to take. Can you, give us an idea, because that's something that we've heard too about him just not taking the money. Like, how does that work? Because she talked about how that money has been dispersed, or Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana. Like, what is that money, and why is Governor Kemp choosing not to take it?
I mean, we're in a hyper polarized environment. So there's a degree to which, right, Kemp is not taking money that he associates with Democrats. But there is also the situation that Kemp is taking money that he associates with Democrats, like the PP money, and he's sending it out to people. So, I mean, the idea is if you see with the Warnock Walker campaign, the idea is to align Warnock with Biden, who
Mm-hmm.
presumably has these low approval ratings, or who presumably creates upset to Republicans who would like to change the president. Right? They feel as if the last presidency was stolen, and they don't appreciate the policies of Democrats. So there's a delicate dance too that Kemp is doing with the former president, with whom he does not get along.
Right.
And so, on the one hand, he wants to lean into pro-Trump voters as much as possible. I would imagine that at some point he wants to repair that relationship to some degree. And at the same time, he at one point did evoke the ire of the former president, and he doesn't want to be in that fray. And we have to mention that, like, Kemp, particularly in the primary, did a superior job of staying out of the way of the former president, and at the same time, making his bid for the governor primary. Like, I thought his care with campaigning was superior. And generally, in terms of political science, right, the incumbent has an advantage. The person has been there, their name is out there, right? So, and this is a different race in 2018, where we had a really good idea of Kemp as a voter suppressor in 2018. This year, he looks like he's pro fair voting, right? The former president called down. He asked him for 11,270 votes, or how many. And Kemp was like, no. And he took flack for it.
Right.
So this election has more to do with, motivating, stimulating all the demographics. It's a tight race, and it doesn't have the same framework that the race in 2018 had.
So, Dr. Jones, I want to ask you, as far as we see these polls. A lot of it is polls from the AJC, which skews Republican a lot through the people who they poll. Just be honest. But currently, Stacey Abrams, she's down 10 points. Following this debate, what do you think? Do you think she did enough to lessen that gap, if that gap is a true indication of where she currently stands? Did she do enough in this debate to win over, I guess, those independent voters?
I want to say that she did. I mean, I thought she seemed gubernatorial. I thought she has a real handle about her presentation. Does the woman ever use notes? Like, I mean, she comes in ready.
She's right.
So, it provides a sense of confidence that if someone didn't have it before the debate and they were on the cusp, perhaps they are at least checking out Stacey's website, which was one of the last things she suggested, right? Take a look at my platform. We're all pretty familiar with what Kemp has done over the last 4 years. I think a lot of people have been comfortable with that. And so, it's a tight situation where both in terms of the party division in the state and in terms of whether or not we're going to take on a new governor, when, a lot of people think that they've been fine under the current governor.
Yeah, I say another one of those interesting things, as Stacey was pointing out, how much Kemp has loosened up the gun laws, and how easy it is to get a firearm, and how much crime has went up. And Kemp, once again, another dog whistle. Well, the majority of people who've been purchasing guns are African American and women, and it was just like, wow, really? So it's just,
I mean, I had a problem with Ahmaud Arbery dying 1 year, and you saying that people can't do vigilante arrests, and then the next year you're doing open carry?
Open carry, yeah.
I mean, what are we talking about here?
But it's supposed to be just so, it's so easy, though. We're just going to arrest the bad people with the guns. That's what we're going to do. But it's like you're increasing the number of possibilities, and, you make it a point to say, hey, the big increase is African American and women buying guns.
And, I think he also tried to, characterize SB 202 as not having any impact on turnout. And it's not about turnout. It's about access.
Right.
And people need to turn out right now because it's that kind of a fight. Right. Like it's that serious. I mean, it's every vote counts.
Right.
So, I found that to be interesting. Whether or not SB 202 has an impact, which we know it does. Drop boxes, for example, are locked inside. The intention of the law is to make it more difficult for people to vote. And that used to apply to Black people, but now that applies to all the people.
Right. I'm just like, wow, this is Now it was interesting, and you just kept referring back to the street gangs, because that's where all of the crime is coming from, the street gangs. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting, moving forward. I'm not even quite sure if I even want to get into some of the interesting Shane Hazel talking points. He kind of painted himself as most likely one of them are going to win, but it's still a problem.
He was like, no laws, no taxes. I mean, my
like,
problem with that is like, if there's no taxes, then there's no money. We see the blight in Black communities because of white flight. I'm saying, what are you talking about? Like, you have to pull the public money. Now, I understand that people try to act like they don't like taxes, but you like nice roads, you like street lights, you like water, you like trash.
I thought that he was pretty much a waste of space. I understand that this is the political process and everyone deserves an opportunity, but I thought that he was rude in a lot of times, and he was over talking Stacey Abrams and wouldn't allow her to complete her sentences, and being very just disruptive a lot of times. So I don't know. I just thought that he took the air out of the room a lot of times from my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
No, I totally agree on that, and it seems like every time he was addressing, he had a bigger issue, even though he was saying both sides of the problem. Oftentimes he was sort of leaning towards Stacey Abrams. So I mean, that was
at one point he said Republican or Libertarian could win, but blah blah blah. I was
right,
like, really, bro?
Right.
I mean,
And so I mean, it was interesting. I mean, them, obviously they got into the wealth gap. That was another question that Governor Kemp dodged. He didn't get into the fact that there is so much money, $10.9 billion coming through the pipeline, and government contracts that Blacks see very little of, and he didn't really have much of a solution as to that. One of his super go-tos was like, hey, during the pandemic, though, I put us back out there to work.
We were dying.
I risked everybody's life and said, hey, we can stay outside. It was a gamble, but no real solutions in that space in terms of just like how are we going to lessen that wealth gap, for Blacks. And it's like okay, it's a state that has a very high entrepreneurial rate, compared to other states, but it's like that don't necessarily make it right, just based on when you really do the mathematics and the numbers and the percentages, and the fact that based on Stacey's number, it will take 100 years before that wealth gap is closed, based on the pace that we're at. So it's going to be interesting. Like what. But what are your thoughts, Dr. Jones, just based off of these debates? Are we even watching? It's like, the votes that, Stacey Abrams is going to need to take it over the top. I mean, are we already locked in? I mean, is it, who are the ones that she's really needing to hear her to take her over the top?
I mean, I think she needs full participation from Black folks. I think she needs some white women. She needs some people who are just reasonable human beings of all the hues. But it's tight, we need to get out here and vote. Right. I do not want to be someone who talks about the potentials for the law. She's gameful. So is Governor Kemp. He's the incumbent. He's been ahead in the polls the whole time. So, the question is, what does turnout look like? There are lots of apathetic voters in the nation and in the state. So not only do we have like 1.6 million new voters registered, there are a lot of people who can come in and have an impact on this election. I gotta sign off.
Okay. No, I mean that's fine. I think we're good. Any closing thoughts? Like what do you think the biggest takeaways were. I mean, for me, just to kick it off, I do feel as if Kemp is a problem, not only because he's the incumbent, but I mean, I think that he was pretty strong, just based on whatever his talking points. I mean, we could go back and fact check the accuracy of what it was, but I mean, I don't feel as if he had too many holes or too many moments to where it felt like he sort of stumbled. I mean, we definitely got like some
I didn't think
great
he had anything to
one-liners.
fill the hole about Stacey Abrams' past record that she didn't want to talk about.
Right, but yeah,
That was a
right,
straw man.
right,
Like, give me some fodder. Put some meat
right.
on the rib. What are we talking about here?
Something.
She
My
was
favorite line of the night. It's possible for us to protect the Second Amendment. And also be able to protect second graders. When it comes to gun laws. So I thought that was a great Stacey one-liner. Punchline.
Okay, gentlemen.
But thanks again,
yeah.
Dr. Jones, for taking the time out. We
welcome.
hopefully we can stay in contact and through this election season have a few more weeks. So we definitely will stay in touch.
Okay, sounds good.
Absolutely. We
Thank you.
appreciate you. All right, thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.